This is the most dangerous elevator in the United States. It takes people, single file, up and down the first 20 floors of Chicago's Marina City. Some call this mechanism a guillotine. I think for pretty obvious reasons. One wrong step and limbs are lost, or worse. Despite that, this death-defying lift solves a challenging problem with a clever design that engineers are studying today to improve elevators everywhere. The building that this thing serves is part of a larger network of structures. They all work together to create what the architect called a city within a city. While the other buildings in the complex have elevators that serve floors with only one type of activity, like offices or theaters, this one, it serves two. The top 45 floors are filled with pedal-shaped condominiums, while the first 20 are for parking. But these aren't really separate floors. It's actually one continuous spiral ramp that coils up 20 stories. Imagine a 20-story parking garage as a single helical ribbon. The massive ramp allows a car to travel all the way up to one of the 450 parking spaces. And since walking back down that spiral isn't a good option, this mechanism is the only practical way that people can go up and down without a car. It's a tiny, continuously running lift to hop on and off when it's time. You see, the architect Bertrand Goldberg, he didn't want just anyone from the parking garage to gain entry into the private residential building. In fact, the parking floors are even owned by a completely different company today. So Goldberg figured valets would be parking these cars. That way, only employees would be going up and down in this lower section of the building. But a conventional elevator would have been exceedingly slow. And to dedicate an entire elevator shaft in the middle of the building core for just this area would eliminate a critical pathway for connecting with the 450 units that are in the upper floors. So he proposed this. It works by driving a rubber-coated belt that's about 18 inches or 0.45 meters wide. This barely human-sized belt moves continuously over a large rotating drum at the ground level with a drive pulley at the top of the 19th floor. It spins pretty slowly, maybe about a foot per second, but it's actually 500% more efficient than the elevators that are inside in terms of throughput in a given area. So to match this tiny belt's throughput, you need 5 conventional elevator shafts like the ones inside. This efficiency comes from eliminating waiting and the acceleration and deceleration times that eat up conventional elevator travel. All that, and it takes up just a fraction of the amount of space, all fitting within holes that are only slightly larger than a human body. But that efficiency, it comes at a cost. Its slow pace looks harmless, but since that belt never stops, if you miss your footing while stepping on, and you're getting dragged upward while your body's still partially in the opening. The same goes for getting off. Hesitate for even a second, and the floor you're trying to exit to starts moving away while the belt keeps pulling you up. Now you're doing the splits between a rising foothold and a stationary floor. If somehow you rode it all the way to the top, you'd be rotating upside down and fed into the descending side. There are emergency stops, sure, but you're relying on someone who's hitting the button before you're folded around some 19th floor pulley. This precarious situation is allowed because the valets receive specific training on how to use it. It can never be opened up for the public to use. But outside the US, there are hundreds of these things. And they're open to anyone that's brave enough to try and time the perfect entry. No training necessary. Elevators like this in Europe have racked up dozens of deaths over the decades. People getting crushed in the mechanism, caught between floors, or simply mistiming their exit. This mechanism is called a paternoster lift, which means Our Father in Latin. The name refers to how the looping belt looks like a set of rosary beads. The design was first approved for human use in 1878, after years of proving itself hauling goods up and down some industrial buildings. 1878, it's the exact same year that Elisha Otis introduced his latest conventional elevator technology, the roped hydraulic elevator. This could serve buildings up to 6 stories high and travel at 244 meters or 800 feet per minute. This year, Otis also began selling a new kind of passenger cab. Until then, cabs were just utilitarian boxes for shuttling people to their destination on various floors. But the new ones, they were well appointed with finished woods and ornate craftsmanship. This transformed the elevator into a luxurious form of vertical transport. And you might recognize that name, Otis. Not only does the same company still manufacture the majority of elevators in the US today, but they're also the ones that created the manlift for Marina City. The dominance of Otis and their luxury elevator cars also served to turn the patnoster into the Betamax of building technology. It's one of those times where a product with superior statistics just lost out onto its more established competitor. The patnoster makes its efficiency gains by allowing multiple points of access all along the single shaft. Conventional elevators can only lift one passenger cab at a time. The Marina City example has these steel little footholds placed at about every 6 or 7 feet, but more traditional patnosters use boxes that look a little more like the boxes that you're used to. That said, having them stream by on their chain-driven rail system never looks normal. Those rails help keep the car from swaying and oriented upright as passengers step on and off of it. Then at the top and the bottom of the system, these cars rotate around 180 degrees and descend down the other side without ever tipping over. That 180-degree flip at the top and the bottom is what makes this work. The same cabins that just went up now come back down the other side. And this creates a continuous loop. While one car will be shuttling up and down in a conventional system while people wait, this version organizes the chaos by keeping everything flowing within organized lanes. The effect is more like a vertical escalator than it is a point-and-click shuttle service, and this changes everything. In fact, there are actually companies right now trying to bring back systems that capture the most important features of this paternoster system today. If they're successful, they'll be able to get the best of both worlds, an incredibly efficient system that's also safe. But they have a huge hill to climb. They'll need to overcome the exact same strict regulations and codes that cemented the demise of the original paternoster in America, namely those set by the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, or ASME, and the Americans with Disability Act, or the ADA. The ASME code is a 500-page document that governs how elevators need to work. Its primary goal is to ensure safety of life and limb. I think you can see where this is going. They call for basic requirements like passenger elevator cars that need to be fully enclosed on all sides. Entrances need to have doors or gates. But patnoster cabins, almost by definition, need to be open-fronted to allow for ingress and egress while moving. If that wasn't enough to kill the idea of bringing these things back, ASME A17.1 mandates that elevators be equipped with interlocks that prevent the car from moving unless the doors are closed and locked. But if the car never stops, that's not even possible. So between ASME's demand for fully enclosed cars and interlocking doors, and then ADA's requirement for 3-second door holds and wheelchair-sized cabins, patnosters couldn't check a single box. I could go on, but either way, solving these issues could help us create much better and more efficient elevator systems in the future. Ironically though, the reason the remaining examples exist isn't because of their efficiency at all. It's about nostalgia. For instance, Germany banned the construction of new patnosters in 1974. But when they tried to shut down the remaining units 20 years later, it sparked a massive set of protests. Citizens who were concerned formed a patnoster association to lobby against shutting these things off. Even when Germany tried to institute a simple restriction to keep the elevators but just limit their use to trained employees, the lobby pushed back and won. Part of their argument was around how the unconventional system created something like a beating heart for the building. Since everyone squeezes through the same set of narrow spaces, people bump into colleagues constantly. These chance encounters, the ones that traditional elevators eliminate, become the heart of these buildings. So building owners and elevator companies have tried updating everything on these to satisfy modern safety standards without compromising the fundamental character of them. This includes high-tech stability monitoring systems, traffic signals that actually tell passengers when it's safe to enter or exit, and infrared sensors that stop the machine if someone ends up where they shouldn't. None of these, though, would meet the standards of the American system of codes or make them safe enough to build today. However, it is possible to meet these safety demands and still capture most of the paternoster's main features, like running multiple cars in a single shaft or shifting cars sideways. And if this new technique is adopted, it has the potential to completely change how we move in buildings and in cities. It's called the multi-system, or MULTI. Instead of chains or ropes and weights, the multi uses linear induction motors. That's the technology that maglev trains use to glide smoothly at incredibly high speeds on land by hovering just slightly above the rails. And in a sense, these elevators in this system do operate a lot more like vertical trains than they do like traditional elevators. Each cabin is propelled by its own linear motor, for instance. It's located on the back of the car on the shaft wall. By eliminating those hanging chains and weights, the system allows multiple cars to move independently within just a single shaft. These cars are fully enclosed, and most importantly, they can actually stop at floors to allow passengers to board and exit. So everything is fully compliant with the ADA. While it isn't a continuous stream of cars like a paternoster, the rails make it work like one. And just adding a single car to a shaft massively increases the overall efficiency of the system. Computers can then coordinate how the multiple cars work together to solve the most efficient way to handle congestion. This almost doubles the amount of people that it can serve in the same amount of time and in the same footprint. And when you couple that with space saving by eliminating other space hogs like machine rooms, the overall savings really add up. One study shows that simply by using this system, you can gain an entire floor's worth of space in a tower without adding any extra height. At extreme heights, the steel cables of a traditional system become so heavy that they break under their own weight. But that doesn't happen here, so there's virtually no height limit. And since each car has its own system of propulsion, it can be made to travel in almost any direction, simply just by reorienting the rails. This opens up the possibility of creating entire movement networks through buildings. In 2017, Tyson Krupp, the inventor of this technology, they built an entire 246-meter tall tower just for testing the system. The tower is a 21-meter circle in plan, and it's filled with 12 different shafts. And footage from the inside makes it look like this vertical train yard. The image of this high-tech twisting tower hovering above this quaint town is really striking. I wonder if it's a coincidence that it spiraled like Marina City. Either way, this out-of-place building has a big job to do if it's going to convince anyone to ditch conventional elevators for this new technology. Over a century of construction has almost literally encrusted the existing technology. It's become so ingrained in construction that it's almost impossible to imagine any alternative. Elevators are the most used rooms in a building, and I think they're almost like the least considered. They determine how tall we build, how dense we build, and who crosses paths with whom, and when. But because they disappear into the core, we don't have to think about them that much. But if we start right here at the center, we can imagine all sorts of new buildings and cities, and the payoff would be huge. You can see it playing out right now with initiatives like the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. It calls for lowering the construction costs of housing, while at the same time increasing levels of accessibility to most people. Systems like elevators are actually at the heart of legislation like this. But it's almost impossible to sift through the rhetoric of such a politicized topic. Depending on where you read about it, housing affordability can be framed as overregulation or labor shortages, or tariffs, or investors, or local zoning, or even mortgage access. But tools like Ground News can help cut through the chatter by gathering over 50,000 sources from across the world and giving you the tools to mute the distractions and understand any potential bias between them. So let's look at the range of reporting on this bill. 108 sources are reporting on it. Scrolling down, you can immediately see that it's framed as a bipartisan effort, but with different headlines highlighting different aspects of how it solves either corporate ownership or access or climate or affordability. And on Ground News, you can view these interpretations side by side and then easily trace who owns each outlet, how reliable its reporting is, and where its bias falls according to independent ratings. I'm no longer just getting handed one version and believing it as reality of the situation. I don't want to find myself in some sort of echo chamber unaware of what half of the world already knows. So I usually start the day with hitting the blind spot feed, which comes with my Vantage plan. It surfaces stories that are being disproportionately reported by either side of the political spectrum. And you can get 40% off unlimited access to all these tools with a Vantage plan like mine by using the link below, ground.news/Stewart Hicks, or scanning the QR code on the screen. You'll start seeing immediately the structure of the world's news with absolute clarity and confidence.